coronavirus pandemic? Well, I mentioned specific astrological combinations as to why this has triggered in my previous videos. But today, I am presenting you 25 major outbreaks through the time of history. I analyzed 5,000 years of planetary data as to why these epidemics and pandemics happen through history. And to your astonishment, I found out one specific combination that triggers such kind of an event. And there is a specific zodiac sign and in fact a lunar mansion, the nakshatra, which triggers these kind of outbreaks. So what is that astrological planetary combination? What is that astrological placement of planets that triggers these kind of events? That is something which I am going to discuss with you in today's video. Welcome to my channel Vedic Astrology Guru. Well, in today's video I am discussing about 25 major outbreaks, 25 major epidemics and pandemics that have taken place past 5,000 years. And what is that astrological combination? What is that zodiac sign that triggers these kind of events? So that is something we are discussing today. If you like this video, kindly leave one of your precious comments down below in the section. And yes, if you want to enroll for one of my modules which I teach, you can mail me. The email address is mentioned below. And if you want to contact me through WhatsApp or a mobile call, you can check my mobile number down below in the section. So, 25 major epidemics since 3000 BC up till 2019. What is the common factor among all these? Well, there is a planetary placement and in one specific zodiac sign that triggers such kind of epidemics and pandemics. But not only epidemics and pandemics are triggered by such astrological placements, there are wars, rebellions, uprisings and many battles that takes place when such a planetary position is happening, such as in 3000 BC and 1500 BC. We do not have the data, but post that you can check in this slide that there are many wars and many uprisings and many rebellions that have taken place. Even from this slide tells you about from 1852 the third cholera pandemic up till 1918 the Spanish flu. What are the major wars that have taken place? And post in this one from 1907 to 2019, you can pause the video and check these. What are the wars that have taken place? This is something I have researched. So not only epidemics and pandemics happen with such kind of a planetary position, there are major war outbreaks. So what is that planetary positioning? What are the planets involved? What are the zodiac signs? What are the nakshatras, the lunar mentions? Well, let me bring you down straight away to that. The culprits or the planets, I would say, are here. Whenever Rahu and Ketu are in the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius, they trigger such kind of an event. Whenever Ketu is in Sagittarius or Rahu is in Sagittarius or vice versa for the Gemini as well, this kind of event takes place. Now, not only Rahu and Ketu are important, the eclipses that takes place during the placement of these two planets, the eclipses in Gemini and Sagittarius also are of great importance. Since ancient times, our ancestors, our sages have mentioned that the eclipses are of great importance. And even during the present pandemic, as you can see, the previous eclipses that have taken place before the coronavirus pandemic that took place in 2019 in the month of December. On 2nd of July there was eclipse in Gemini, on 16th July in Sagittarius, on 26th December 2019, which was the initial trigger point for the coronavirus outbreak, the eclipse happened in Sagittarius, and this was one very important eclipse. And up further, on the 10th of January, again in Gemini, on the 5th of June, there will be again one eclipse that will take place in Scorpio, and Scorpio represents the longevity and the death of human being. Now, this may be a trigger point when we may see huge outbreaks, huge casualties all across the globe regarding the present pandemic. Then post that, there will be, on 21st of June, there will be again an eclipse in the sign of Gemini, and this eclipse is taking place in Punarvasu Nakshatra, so there is a high probability that due to major outbreak previously before this date, there can be lockdowns again post this date in the month of July and August. So there is a possibility that there may be lockdowns in a lot of countries again because of the major spread of this virus again. But after this, the 5th of July, when the chain of these eclipses will break and Rahu and Ketu will shift to Taurus and Scorpio eventually, that is when we may see development of a vaccine, or maybe an alternative vaccine may be introduced, because 30th November is the date when 30th November 2020 is the date when there will be eclipse in Taurus sign. So around the month of November, or just after the month of July, around the month of August or September, we may see introduction of a new vaccine. So all these eclipses are very important. So let me bring you down to the eclipse of 26th December 2019. So this was the eclipse that took place on 26th of December 2019. As you can see that Rahu is in Gemini and Ketu is in Sagittarius. And in fact, if you look closely, Rahu is in Nakshatra Ardhara, and the rest of the planets, including Sun, Jupiter, Moon and Mercury, they are in Mool Nakshatra. So Mool Nakshatra and Ardhara Nakshatra are of great importance here, and in fact the Gemini sign and the Sagittarius sign are of great importance. But the eclipses have great importance, and occultations of Sun are also of great importance. Just before this eclipse in the month of December, there was occultation of Sun by Mercury in the month of November. Whenever there is occultation of Sun by Mercury, there are issues pertaining to the lordships and the significance of Mercury. Now Mercury is the lord of the 6th house, which represents your diseases, illness, combats, fights, accidents, and since Mercury also governs the 3rd house, which represents communications, documentations, so there will be trouble in regards to documentations, there will be failures in communications, and not just communications among people, communications among nations may get fractured. And in fact, since Mercury also represents the economic situation of any of the countries, there can be disbalance in that economic situation as well. So the eclipses and occultations of Sun are of great importance. You can do further research regarding the occultation of Sun by Venus, Jupiter and Saturn, because they have, all of these have different results. So up further, what happened after this eclipse? Now why? The question arises, why the zodiac sign Gemini and why the zodiac sign Sagittarius? Why are these two signs of great importance? Whenever Rahu and Ketu are transiting through these zodiac signs, and particularly through these nakshatras, the Ardhara and the Mool nakshatras, that is the time when these kind of epidemics, pandemics, battles, wars are taking place. Now what is so special about these two signs? So for that we will have to understand these zodiac signs. So as you can see, Gemini, the lunar mansions present or the nakshatras present in the Gemini sign are Vrikshira, Ardra and Punarvasu. And Ardra nakshatra is of great importance. Now this zodiac sign, it represents a boy and a girl sitting with their backs to each other. This is a dual sign. This is an airy sign. Now since it is an airy sign, it can show problems, even virus and bacteria spread through air, because this is an airy sign. The caste is Shudra, which tells that, which is associated with hard worker or low caste worker. So as you can see, people who were doing really basic jobs at this time have become of great importance during this coronavirus pandemic. And the people who have been in lockdown at their homes have to work hard to manage all the resources. So definitely, even post this pandemic, there will be a lot of hard work for the economy to revive and for the people to save their jobs. So hard work is definitely associated with this sign. Now the Lord is Mercury, who is the prince in royal cabinet. It represents youth, intelligence, diplomacy and communications. Now if the association is positive, everything regarding your youth, intelligence, diplomacy and communications will be positive. But since the impact, the combination of the eclipse was major, so major, with so many planets were involved, that was the only reason of such huge outbreak. So there will be lack of logic, there will be failure of logic, the diplomacy, the countries, they will have trouble maintaining diplomatic relationships among each other, and there will be failure of communications as well. Now Gemini sign represents your shoulders, arms, lower throat, upper chest and skin. So any of these organs may get affected during the outbreak of any of these epidemics or pandemics. And as of present, in this present epidemic, we already know that the throat is already the affected part of the body initially. Now it also represents your courage, protection, combats. Now since this represents your combats, there is high probability that just after this outbreak there can be disharmony among a lot of countries, or there may be disharmony against one specific country by other countries, and there can be some sort of war that may take place after the pandemic or around the pandemic. So combats, affection, sacrifice, mental confusion and airy disturbances in the body. So as we already know, this present virus, the coronavirus, affects the mental abilities of the person, which is quite evident through this zodiac sign. Being in the 8th from the natural 8th house, because the 8th house of the horoscope, the natural Kalpurusha chart, shows the longevity of a person and the death of a person, and 8th house counting from that 8th is the Gemini sign. Now it also represents death and hidden or sudden troubles of extreme nature, which we already are facing. Now Ardra Nakshatra in this sign represents destruction prior to new creation. As we already know, since this pandemic has happened, post this pandemic, we all will see there will be new guidelines for hospitality industries, for medical cares, for tourism industries, for food industries and much more. So definitely destruction prior to new creation. So this is the Gemini sign, and now I will take you down to the characteristics of the Sagittarius sign. Now Sagittarius sign has lunar mentions or nakshatras Mool, Purvashadha and Uttarashadha. Now Mool nakshatra becomes very important in this zodiac sign. Now this zodiac sign represents centaur-like creature which is half human and half horse. Now again, this is a dual sign. Now dual sign shows resistance. Now dual sign shows the probability of a thing happening once again. Now this sign the element of this sign is fiery, and the caste is Kshatriya, which shows warriors, and definitely warriors are associated with your combat. So the probability of wars and battles along with these epidemics and pandemics becomes quite obvious with the characteristic of this zodiac sign taking place here. Now planet lord is Jupiter, which is minister in royal cabinet. So the heads of the states, the heads of the countries, the ministers of the countries will have to face critical situations during these kind of outbreaks. Jupiter signifies preacher, guide, wisdom, wealth, ether and life force. As we already know, whenever a pandemic is taking place, life is at threat. Definitely wealth is at threat as well. And we need guides who can tell us, show us the path, how to get along through these kind of events. Now Sagittarius represents hips, upper and lower thighs, liver and fatty cells in the body. So there is possibility of these organs also getting affected, but what is more important here is that the thighs and the hip joint show a major joint in the body. So it will bring us to, it represents major changes or major links of life, crossing spaces. So this will bring a person or a community or a society or a country at a crossroads to make a major decision, make a major change in everything. So expansion, transformation, curse, fight, beastly nature, afterlife, underworld, gradual decay before afterlife. Why gradual decay? Because every virus spread, it gradually eats the life of a person, and eventually after it has destroyed the body of the person, there is definitely decay to the body. And plague. Now why plague? I researched the astrological assumptions or the astrological theories of the Babylonians. Now in the Babylonians era, they assumed that plague is associated with Sagittarius. But why? Because Sagittarius sign has the galactic center of our own galaxy. So the center of our own galaxy, as we already know, has a black hole, and black hole as an entity is something which is not a very positive thing. So that is one of the reasons the zodiac sign Sagittarius also represents your plague. So piercing, pain, healing, colonist. So there may be new things for the people, new colonies to be developed or colonies to be abandoned during this kind. Piercing pain, why? Because this sign represents an archer, this sign represents an arrow, and giver of new laws. So definitely new guidelines have to be created, new guidelines have to be introduced in a lot of ways. Mool Nakshatra also represents destruction prior to new creation. So again, these two nakshatras also get involved in this way. So now I will tell you about these two lunar mentions, the Ardra and the Mula Nakshatra. Ardra Nakshatra. So the symbol of Ardra Nakshatra is raindrop or teardrop, and the deity is Rudra. Well, Ardra shows simple lifestyle, new creation after destruction, and sorrows is represented by this nakshatra. Since it also represents tears, it can be associated with cleansing. This nakshatra also represents raindrop, which is associated to freshness. The deity Rudra relates to frightening, roarer or howler. Rudra in itself shows havoc, anarchy, chaos, but all this is to bring order. Rudra also shows evolutionary process of humans, recovery from illness, healing remedies, 1,000 medicines and a protector. So if the deity is offended in the sense, if the planetary combination, if the axis along with the Rahu, Ketu, the eclipses, there are other negative planets, malefic planets involved, and the combination is not very good, then is the time we see outbreaks of such kind of epidemics and pandemics, and definitely wars. Rudra also represents properties of cure from within. So with the present scenario, there is a high probability that the cure may be found from within the body, and even we already know that internal immunity is of great importance as of now in this virus outbreak. So Rudra also narrates to abundance in nature. Rudra also represents freshness of garden or decay in a graveyard. Rudra also may represent mark in a history or important events in history. So whenever this kind of a negative planetary combination is happening, so it leaves a great mark in the history. Now what about the other nakshatra? Now Ardra nakshatra was associated with the Gemini sign. This is the lunar mention in the Gemini sign. Now I will tell you about the Mool nakshatra. The symbol is roots, the deity is Rudrani, similar as Rudra, or we may also call it Nariti. This constellation indicates destruction prior to new creation. It also represents poison, medicines and physicians. As we already know, any pandemic, any war, any battle, any epidemic will definitely need a lot of physicians and a lot of medicines as a cure. Mool nakshatra literally means roots or foundations. So the foundations are shaken if the planetary combination is bad. This representing investigative researches. Roots also show penetration, rigidity, hidden things, making a medicine, because roots since ancient time in Ayurveda have been used used to create medicines. Now Mool nakshatra constitution is airy and connected to root. It represents basic vital force in human body, which is breath, and in the present pandemic we already know that breath is the medium of transfer of this virus. So breath is of very importance, and breathing is the issue that the people with this virus, the illness, they are facing breathing problem as well. So Nariti is also known as Alakshmi. Alakshmi means destruction of wealth and sorrows. Alakshmi causes lack of food, restraint and confinement, which we already are seeing during these lockdowns that are happening all across the globe in various countries. This constellation represents sudden reversals of fortunes. This nakshatra represents herbal medicines and alternative healing, which I have already told you about, that once the eclipse in November will take place, that is the time when just a month earlier or a month later is the probability that we may see a cure, that we may see an alternative healing is possible by some alternative medicine or something like that. So these are the lunar mentions, these are the nakshatras. But what up ahead? Now, as I will bring you to the retrogression of planets that is going to take place in 2020, Mercury and Venus are going to get retrograde in June and May, and Jupiter and Saturn will get retrograde in the month of May, and both in May. But what is particular about all these planets? If you look closely enough, Venus and Mercury are interior planets. They are closer to the Sun, they are in the middle of Sun and Earth, and Jupiter and Saturn are exterior planets. So this position, once these planets retrograde, they will be kind of, it will be a kind of a situation where Earth is in the middle of all these major planets. And with all these planets retrograde, it will show some special results, some special effects regarding the present pandemic. Now it could be with the eclipses that are taking place, there is a high probability that there may be outburst of casualties, and later on around the month of end of July or August we may see lockdowns happening again. And with this retrogression, there is a high probability that the foundations for any major war that may take place in upcoming months or maybe next year may get laid down. So this period of retrogression of these major planets during the month of May, June and July is very, very important. So all in all, the eclipses will definitely trigger what they show. That is very important. And eventually the pandemics. So this is the research that I have done. You can use this research to further analyze and observe things that may happen in upcoming future. And if you have any queries, if you have any comments, kindly leave those so I can I can use them as a feedback. And this will be all for this video. And stay safe, stay home. Namaste.